traditionally speaking with labels, it's like producers are replaceable. You know, unless you're one of the ones that you've proven to make hits for us, like we can replace you. The artist is the brand that we own and that we're building.
Peace, what's going down? It's a Music Entrepreneur Club podcast. This is either episode 87 or 88. I'm sorry, Dame. I'm delinquent on my duties. MEC podcast is powered by Beatstars. We're live on Beatstars with our free music business mentorship program twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays at 3 p.m.
Hold on, I don't mean to interrupt you, but before, I do want to make sure I get this announcement in before we start. I've been having the text marketing sessions every Monday. I'm flipping that and I'm going back to having the artist management roundtable discussion. So every Monday going forward at 1:30, I basically get a bunch of managers together to network and share best practices. So it's for inexperienced managers, it's for experienced managers, but I think there definitely needs to be a platform where managers acquire the tools and the resources necessary to be able to do their job, because there's not that many young managers that jump into this well prepared. It's kind of like a learning on the job type deal. So if you want to attend the artist management roundtable discussions going forward, just go to our Instagram, click the link in the bio, sign up. As always, it's free. Looking forward to the discussion on Monday, because we'll probably be talking about the Chance's situation with his manager and what we can learn from that. So I look forward to that discussion. So apologies, Payne.
I still have to read that paperwork. You should apologize for sending me that long ass legal document.
It's good. I mean, it's not
I'm
good,
sure it's riveting.
It's not good. Good is a bad word. It's interesting. It's definitely a lot to learn from the situation. So, I look forward to diving into that.
Yeah, it's totally going to replace my my Kurt Vonnegut and Stephen King novels. So anyway, we have an amazing guest today. To me, someone always has to interrupt me. Now it's my cat. To me, this is one of the dopest rappers to have emerged in recent history. His name is Marlon Craft, and we appreciate him being on here with us today. How are you feeling, sir?
Thank you, man. I'm feeling good, man. Thank you guys for having me.
How long you been at it? You've been at it for a minute, man. How long?
Oh, man, it's been a minute. I mean, I started when I was in college, really, where I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm committed to doing this, but I was still finishing up school. So it was always like 1 foot out, 1 foot in. So I always kind of mark like me coming home from school as kind of a certain beginning point, because that's when I was like, all right, I'm home. This is what I'm doing, a full force. And that was in 2015. So, I mean, it's been at least like 6 or 7 years of dropping projects, 6, 7, more than that, really, like 8 or 9.
Where did you go to school at?
I went to American University in DC.
Okay, what'd you study?
I made my own major, which was, the title was Urban Education, Policy, Pedagogy, and Social Justice. And it was like interdisciplinary between education and sociology.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Payne, I know you have topics you wanted to cover, but I heard the interview that you did with Rob Markman, I think with Oswin Benjamin and a young lady. I think her name is Noir or something like that.
Noir, yeah.
There we go. Not too familiar with her stuff, but I keep seeing her name, so she must be making.
Wait, it was Shay Noir?
Yeah.
Oh, she's dope.
Yeah, my apologies to her, because I'm not that familiar, but I have been seeing her name. So, I look forward to seeing her stuff. When Rob was talking about, how independent artists are continuing to make money in a pandemic, you brought up The Center, which is your membership program that you started. How long have you had that, and what has the experience been so far?
So we launched that a few months ago now. I think it was August or September 2020. And, I had just come out of a deal that I was in, was the first and only deal I ever did with a label called Same Plate. That was.
Oh, you're not with them anymore?
No, I'm completely independent. So that was Jonathan Masters' label, and it was a JV with Sony.
Right.
And so I was there I put out one album and one EP with them. And so I came out of that, and I was just looking at the situation, and I was just looking at, the state of the world and not being able to tour, and understanding that, that's the backbone of any independent artist, but artists in general. Even when I was at the label, I was planning that, you know, for longevity. I was like, this is what I need to build. And then understanding that it was gone for at least now, and we don't know how long, and just kind of combing through the internet and seeing what other people were doing. And I was just like thinking about money and the numbers that I really needed to get it done. And I think the complicated thing sometimes with artists is it's like, what's the baseline? Like, how can you establish a baseline of like monthly payment, like another human would get, like, you know, somebody that's just working a regular job. So I saw people doing the Patreon thing, and I was just like, I've always had that dedicated core, and it's always really just been about continuing to scale it. And when I saw that, and it was like this understanding of like depth over breadth, and saying like, even just with a little bit of depth, I can begin to really make some money and fund my own thing. I was like, this is something that we have to try to do, this subscription model. And I was like, even if we only get, you know, 20 people in the beginning, like this is something that we have to grow out long term. So we launched it, and fans received it really well, and we got like hundreds of people in there. And so we've just been building it out, and it's been special because it's basically almost all the videos for my new How We Intended album, and I shot like 11 or 12 of them, have all been funded by money from the center.
Dope. And so, because I joined, I wanted to get a feel for the experience and how you're doing it. And I think when I joined, I got access to a Discord. And then when I joined the Discord, somebody greeted me. Are these people on your team, or are these people that are fans of you and they're just excited about being part of the center?
These are fans. Yeah. Whoever greeted you was a fan. You know, one of the things I'm working on now is I kind of describe to them, it's like that the center is kind of still in beta. You know what I'm saying? It's like we began it knowing that it was like a longer term thing. And so right now we're kind of working through how we do a sort of relaunch where, you know, we kind of make things more seamless, upgrade the design a little bit, integrate the Discord and some of the other things into the actual site, and just make sign up easier and a lot of different stuff. But these fans that are in there now, and there's a core within the core, you know, as there always is, we have hundreds of people, but then we have like, you know, the 50 people that are like really into it, you know, and they're in the Discord every day. They're creating relationships with each other. You know, I do weekly Zooms. They're like always trying to strategize with me on how they can help and do things. And when someone comes in, you know, they welcome it. It's been interesting and really dope to watch sort of this like authentic community build around my music. It's been special.
And what tell people exactly what you get when you subscribe to the center, and if you have levels, or is it just one type of membership?
So right now there's one level. It's $7 a month, or it's $75 for the year. But and we're probably going to introduce more tiers eventually. But you know what you get right now is, you know, you get a weekly Zoom session with me where I'll come on, I'll talk about what's going on. So you'll get like a behind the scenes kind of understanding, as if you were like my close friend or maybe on my management team, of like what's been going on and what I'm thinking about doing and how I feel about something that just dropped or if it happened or whatever. And you get to communicate with me in the Zoom. That's baseline. There's also exclusive songs. Like I have some series of content with them where I'll throw some demo stuff that maybe didn't make it onto anything, but I always really liked. You know, I'll give that to them privately and exclusively. I'll preview a bunch of songs. Yesterday in the Zoom, I like have to play some songs for a special opportunity coming up, and I wasn't sure which. So I was like playing them new songs and getting their input and opinion. And then you get to be in the Discord all the time, where I'm hopping in all the time, and you're a part of the community. And you know, that's kind of the baseline of stuff. And then exclusive merch stuff. Like when I drop merch, I'll do colorways that are exclusive to the center, and you have to be a member. Vinyl as well. Like for the exclusive vinyl, we did like when we did our vinyl drop for Funhouse Mirror, we had 100 pieces that were like these exclusive color pieces. So the center got first dibs, and they actually sold out within a few hours on the center. So public didn't even get access to them. So stuff like that, man. And that's what's amazing about it too, from a business perspective, is like in this day and age where you're trying to cut through algorithms where you say like, I got 100,000 people following me, but I can only talk to like 9,000 of them at any given time. And I got to figure out how do I get to them. you have like your most diehard and supportive consumers in one place. So I can contact the center when there's a new piece of merch or a new piece of thing. I don't have to post 87 times on Instagram to try to get to those people and hope it gets to them. You know what I mean? So it's been dope, man.
Right. Pan, if you have questions, man, I got so many questions because I'm a big fan of membership programs. I understand that it's a lot of work. You know, some people just look at it as a revenue generating opportunity and then they just jump in it real quick. But building something like this takes a lot of work, a lot of creativity. You got to stay committed to it. Whatever you have for your tier, you have to make sure you follow through and provide, or people are gonna drop out. And it's going to be hard to, get new members in too. And then your reputation might take a hit because, the center somebody might post online like he's not following through with what he said he was going to do. I'm not paying this stupid $7 or whatever. I definitely understand the work. We tried to do it. I was working with Futuristic for a minute and we tried to set up a membership program, and I just don't think it was a good fit for him because of the requirement of the consistency and just kind of sticking to it and making sure that, you're providing value for fans on a weekly basis and making them feel a part of that community, which is key. So you feel good about it now? You feel really good, something that you want to continue to pour into?
Oh yeah, I have to. I mean, and I think like you said, it may not be a fit for everyone, but like for me, I'd like to stay independent for as long as I can and see what the limits of this are. But I already just see, like, the way I view it is almost like I'm workshopping this thing and I'm making money and building community while I'm workshopping it, because I haven't, I just started it because I wanted to get it off the ground and get the money coming in and see if there was interest. But now I'm in it and I'm like, okay, I see the vision for this. And I really think it's not, the first like sort of mid to long-term goal is like, let's get this to 1,000 members. And then it's like, when you start getting in, I just think it's really doable. And when we start to get those numbers up, then it's like, then you have real leverage. Even if you want to deal make, that's what artists I think don't understand. It's like, it's not always the decision between like indie label, this, that, and the third. For me, I'd like to stay independent because that's a fit and it makes a lot of sense to me. But like, if you're going to make a deal, you have to be able to walk away from the table, or you have to be able to say like, I can do all this for myself. I mean, that's leverage. So it's just something that I view as essential to what I'm doing. And I mean, I have a business manager, and he's just like, as soon as I told him about this idea, he started saying the money. He's like, yo, you need to focus a lot of attention on this because this is the most reliable and like sensical income stream. It makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to build it out for a long time and see how big it could get, because I wonder about like, to me, it's not a commitment to being like this underground artist forever. I just wonder about, what if like Drake had a subscription service? Right. You know what I'm saying, like, what if Drake had his own streaming service? I mean, I guess that's what Jay tried to do with Tidal originally, kind of. But like, I just think that the possibilities are endless. I mean, every day now you see what the TV companies are doing. There's like, they're all making these streaming platforms, these subscription platforms, and there's a new one that crops up every day. And I just think when we think about artist empowerment, we got to use everything, that's at our disposal and redefine value. Like, what is $7 a month? Like, I live in New York. When I go to a bar, if I get one drink, I'm paying $11. Like, right. And that's what's cool about it too. Like, to your point earlier, people leaving, there's like hundreds of people in the center, and there's only like, 50 people that are actively engaged all the time, I would say, and come to all the Zooms and everything like that. But the rest of the people in there, like, they're not leaving. Like, they're just busy, don't care so much necessarily about that, but they want to support in theory because they just feel good about the fact that they understand who I am, what I'm doing, they're supporting that. And I think that's really, really important, because we spend so much money, time, and attention like passively, but we're paying corporations, and we're making choices to not pay artists. So getting people thinking about that, I think, is important.
Yeah, I think the whole micro transaction concept is still something that artists haven't come to terms with. And I know, well, let me compare it to the online producer space. So when the whole beat leasing thing started, and I was watching it unfold, and you were seeing producers, leasing beats for $12. I think a lot of us, I know I was looking at it like, $12 for a beat? Are you out of your mind? You can't, nah. You're going to mess the game up. No one's going to make any money, and it's just going to destroy everything. And, fast forward a decade, all those guys are financially independent, and, the rest of us are trying to catch up. So compare what you're doing now with microtransactions kind of at the center of your revenue model with how financially things were when you were actually signed to a independent deal with a major joint venture.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's no comparison. Like I'm financially, for the first time in my life, I have a little bit of money, and it's amazing because, a lot of it was getting the kick in the ass in terms of kind of saying, all right, it's, I got other parts of the puzzle together this year with the vinyl, with the merch, et cetera. But when I was at the label, I was broke because I was in a deal that, by industry standards is artist friendly, by standards of logic and reason, I would discover is not. But, it wasn't like a terrible deal, at all. But I didn't take some huge advance because that wasn't the type of deal that I wanted. And I wasn't trying to owe a label a bunch of money and everything like that. So the advance dries up real fast. And by the way, even if you take a huge advance, the advance dries up real fast because you got to pay everybody, pay taxes. Maybe you're getting a year's salary, and then it's you're kind of hamstrung, right? I was building touring. I was actually at a place where I needed to be investing in touring, where right before the pandemic, I'd just become profitable touring. And so I was building touring, you're building out the other things, and where's the income? There's no monthly streaming income. There's no flexibility in terms of just timeline. It's I could do it now. I'm going to do a bunch of projects. And, obviously as artists, we're careful to not want to water down our thing. But really what I've learned is that the reason, they make you feel this thing about legacy and about every project has to be this, has to, for artists like me that care, I feel that's kind of preyed upon. And when you get within the system, you realize that the only reason that my favorite artists like Kendrick and Cole and all these other people or whoever it is, made albums in that way is because the structure of label deals is made to make you in it for a long time and to try to profit squeeze over singles and individual albums, and make it efficient for them. So now I'm in a position where I can drop a project at any time, get an advance from a distro, don't get an advance from a distro, wait a couple months, start getting the money back. I can drop merch, I can drop vinyl, I got the center rolling in, I got all these things. I'm very, very far from a rich man, but I'm making money and I have a business model that works. And I just think there's too much temptation in the label situation. When you're there, you're I'm here so that this shit can ultimately pop off. That's how their minds work. It's we make a bunch of bets and most of them are low risk for us. And when one pays off big, it pays for everything. So we're not worried about you making incremental money and actually living a life. You're either going to pop off for us, and pay for everything, or you're going to be another small, low risk bet that didn't work out. But as the artist, it's what about me? And to be clear, I think Same Plate was trying to do something different than that. That's why I went there. They weren't trying to be part of that. I don't think it's possible. You can't be a hybrid especially in a major label building where you got to do the same paperwork as if you're at Epic. It's it's not realistic.
I want to jump back to that, but before I lose this question just on the center, because you opted to build out your own membership program as opposed to just doing something like Patreon. what was that decision? Did you even consider doing Patreon, or did you already just know you wanted to build out your own platform?
We talked about it, we were like, do we do Patreon, or do we do like, could we do our own thing? Like, could we set it up? And we were just like, nah, we want to do our own shit. Cause I've always just been that type of guy. I think my team that I work with, we're like that. We're like, can we make it cool and make it our own and brand it? And I also think, like, as a branding exercise, whenever you can make things your own, and I don't run from it. Like I said when I dropped it, like, this is kind of like a Patreon. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not trying to shade them or not acknowledge the inspiration, but I just think that there's limits on the shit when you go into something that's already built. And when you build your own thing, there's so many places that you can go with it. And you then, to expand it, you don't have to leave it. It's not like, okay, everyone that's been supporting me on Patreon, we're going to expand this now in this way. Can you come over with me over here? It's like, you're already here in this world that we've created. And it also really does feel like a world. Like, I want it to feel like a community and like a world. And with the center, it's kind of like, it's my, that way it's my own thing. So, and ironically, a lot of people too, this wasn't even my intention, but a lot of people are like, when I dropped it, people are like, this is genius. Like, this is whatever. And I was kind of like, it's not that genius, right? Like, it's not like I invented this idea, right? But I think as an exercise of branding, like, people really fuck with things when you do them yourself,
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea in of itself may not be genius, but as you come up with unique and creative ideas and experiences for your fans, I would probably opt not to do Patreon too, but Patreon is not a bad thing. A lot of people are making a lot of money on Patreon. Obviously there's stability in the platform, there's trust in the platform. They've built up that, and I think they started out only taking 5%. I think that's increased to like 12% now. But having the center, because we used to have the Music Entrepreneur Club used to be a membership program, and we built out our own platform, and I think that made more sense than just doing Patreon. Matter of fact, I think we did Patreon, and then we moved to our own platform, and just the ability to create your own experience. If you have a certain element that's part of your brand, and you want to, just do something super unique, you have the ability to do that. But all that's on you to build it out and to make sure that the tech works and the experience is solid.
Right. And that's why, like, I had one of my managers was like, I think I can do this. You know what I mean? Like, I can set it up at least to start, and so I had that, and I was lucky to have that. Like, if you don't have somebody that that can do that, or that's on your team, then Patreon's awesome, and it's set up for you and it's there. I think, but now that you say it too, I remember that conversation too. Like, when we were just breaking the money down and looking at that they were taking more now, we were just kind of like running numbers on it, and we were like, yeah, we could do this and we could keep more money, so that was a part of it.
So you linked up with a Beatstars producer, and you're working extensively with them, right? Mm-hmm. How did you link up with them? And I got some follow-up questions, but first of all, how'd you link up with them? Were you just on YouTube looking for beats?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, Arbis, who has been working with me for years now, like 5 years, like since, what someone called the beginning. I met him on YouTube, and I don't know I actually am not sure if he uses Beatstars, but I'm sure he does to some degree. But I met him just searching for like Joey Badass type beat, on YouTube. He lives in Sweden, and we started working. And then when I had the label budget, I flew him in from Sweden to work on the album, and we've built this amazing relationship. And he's like the only like consistent producer across all my projects. He's like my guy. And then, there's other producers that I've met on there, a couple in one in particular I'm working on an EP with right now. And so that was the same thing. It was like type beats. I was just looking for like type beats. I mean, there's just so much talent on YouTube. It's crazy. And if you have taste, then, you can really I found plenty of beats like that.
So how does the business break down? I know there are so many miscommunications between rappers and producers with regard to, composition ownership, master royalties, A, B, and C, you name it. How was it when you were working with the label? How is it now as you're doing an EP with a producer? Are you still paying in advance and then you're working out splits or no advance and just 50-50 splits? How is that working out?
So, I mean, the numbers are different now that we're indie than they were at the label. Because again, it was like, major label paperwork, which was another awkward part of like the hybrid situation, because I had like no budget. I had an indie style budget, and I was going around to producers like, yo, understand, like you're in that phase of saying like, I don't have it yet, but like you're here because you see the promise, and this is what I can give you, and this is what we're gonna do, and whatever. And so many of these producers, like everyone would be cool with that because they fuck with me, and it's like whatever, except they see Sony on the thing and they're like looking at me crazy. And that was a really rough period when I was working on the album, because I was like, I didn't want to seem like I was skimping on anybody, and I just felt stupid when I was explaining it to people, because I started thinking about like, well, why is it so? Why don't I have the money to pay these people if I am at a label? So that was a part of it. Like the royalty, I was trying to sell them on a royalty rate being higher than normal, because that's what was sold to me. But yeah, like higher than normal if we know we're going to recoup and like we're making hits and then everyone's getting their bread. You know what I'm saying? It was shaky. So, now I still I still work out individual deals on an individual basis, but I'm blessed to have a team that, around me of producers for the most part that really believes in what I'm doing and understands my situation. And so, they're not really tripping on big advances right now. And I appreciate them for that. But even people like I had Plain Pat on my album, you know what I mean? And like, he's on everybody's album, you know what I'm saying? But he's just like, I just fuck with what you're doing and I just believe in it. So, he's working with me and stuff like that. So the one thing about the Beatstars thing that I think is interesting, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think is, and I think this is the danger of all this stuff in general, it's like, how do you do the interim thing and still like leave the space to go really, really big, which is what everyone wants, like the opportunity to go really, really big. Because in this experience that I'm having, I'm putting together an EP right now with a Beatstar dude. And, I'm looking at it and I'm like, and I'm doing the right thing. We're working, I'm giving him a split because I want to use his name and we're going to do a whole thing. And I just think it's the right thing to do. But the truth is I could go on his Beatstars and buy these 6 beats for $30 a pop on the lease, and I could pay like $150, $180, whatever, and be done. So I'm not doing that because I just don't think it's the right thing to do, obviously. But that's what I found interesting about that model is like overall it's so empowering to all these people who are otherwise just in the dark, and how do you make any money? But what happens, what if I was a dick, like what would happen? Like what if I take and get millions of streams, you know what I mean? And then like, are you giving that part of it up? And I see the same thing on the artist side of that equation, which is it's more of the like, do you water yourself down conversation? Like how much stuff do you put out and how much do you off? So that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Payne, tell me if I'm wrong, like the only downside of that, if you pay for the unlimited, is just ownership, like 100% ownership in the master when it comes to like sync placements and other people having the beat as well, using the beat as well. Is there any other downside financially to that, Payne?
For the producer,
for the artist.
Oh, for the artist, no. I mean, for artists is made, but I'm saying for the producer, like let's say if I just bought all the beats for what they're listed as on Beatstar, and then like I was chilling, like you see what I'm saying? Like I'm giving him a royalty split as if he's an artist because I'm doing a collaborative EP with him.
Right.
But if it was like, you understand what I'm saying? So it's like,
yeah, he'd be getting a much lower royalty split. I think. I mean, there's still a underlying composition split in the Beatstars contract. So no matter what, if you're licensing a beat on Beatstars, there's a split. It's just that if you're doing the EP with him, it's probably different scenario because you're talking directly. And I'm not saying, don't negotiate with producers on Beatstars, because anyone can reach out to anyone and kind of work out and fine tune the agreements.
And I want to be clear, we're just talking. I think Beatstars is fire because I think all these people are eating off it. It's incredible. But I think this is where I think Beatstars one side of the thing. Then you have other pillars of independent artistry where it's I think of my guys at Indie 5. I don't know if you know those cats, but they got this thing where they're have built out this platform that connects artists, puts the artists in the database and connects them with team people. So there's lawyers on there, there's managers on there, there's distro companies on there that can go on, and then they're looking at artists and they're reaching out and they're making connections to people. And then that would be, work and complement to something like a Beatstars, because then it's okay, I'm on Beatstars, I'm making my bread, I'm building my platform, but now I have situations where artists approach me about projects, but I need a manager to work this out for me to make sure that it whatever. So I'm on the Indie 5 thing, and or whatever it is.
What's that called? I'm not familiar with that platform. Indie 5?
Yeah, Indie 5. Yeah, those guys, they're really dope. And they actually have investors on there too that are making direct investments into artists.
I'm gonna have to tap in with them and have them on the MEC and see what's going on. I'd be skeptical of just finding a manager on a platform like that, but I'm not saying it couldn't happen.
I assume there's a review process, right? Where at very least you get to read some reviews and some testimonials.
Oh yeah. Also it's invite only right now, way that they're working it out. So the only people that are on there are legit folks. They have to get an invite, and they're kind of still in beta themselves, I believe. But they have that guy Alexis, whatever, who was the Reddit investor guy or whatever. He's he's invested directly in an artist already through the platform. I think he's an investor, and I've spoken to some investors as well through there. It's interesting. It's a cool thing. I only bring it up because I think about all these things where I'm thinking about the holes and everything. And it's it's not, this is the problem. It's not the job of everything to solve every issue. And we sometimes, I think in that way, because that's what labels have conditioned us, I think, to think because they're look at us, we got all the money and we're going to do everything, whatever. But, but we're only going to be accountable to you for nothing really. And but we're going to take over all the responsibility so that we take money from everything. And the truth is it's really about complementary structures and systems and institutions, us creating our own institutions in the independent space.
Yeah, I think it comes down to education, really. Really understanding, what's happening in this industry, the different ways you can set your business up, all the different revenue streams that are out there. And you just position yourself to win and to fulfill your personal goals. The deal, I don't want to, you don't need to say what the terms of the deal, but your situation with Same Plate had a relationship. It was a joint venture with Sony. I know when we did our deal, when I was running Funk Volume and we did a label services deal with Warner, some of the misperception from the artist was they just saw Warner and thought it was a traditional Warner deal. We were going to get traditional Warner services. Was there anything that you thought going into this situation that didn't materialize or that you learned from that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah. I knew it wasn't traditional, but also, to be honest, I just didn't really have a grasp on what traditional was. And, I didn't really shop because I wasn't trying to go to a label. My whole thing was fuck that. I was really scared of labels. I was really anti-major labels. And then I happened to, I took this one meeting and I got kind of sold on this in between. And I was in a place where I felt a plateau coming on, and I knew I could make things like gang shit. And I knew I wanted to get in the studio with musicians and do stuff that required budget. And I was to get to the next level at this point, I need a little bit of budget, And so I ended up taking this, this situation. And in retrospect, I didn't really know, what a traditional major label deal even would have looked like and what the difference necessarily would have been. I only knew like the negatives of like, oh, they would have taken way more royalties and they would have, and it would have been more money, but it would have been longer and it would have been all these things. So I think the struggle though that you're describing of that frustration is like, because I think as artists, it's just like, I just don't think the value's there. Like there's money, but then like there's value. And I just don't think the value. And I'm never going to say, I have a good relationship with the same play guys still. But, and I'm never going to act like, I didn't, progress while I was over there and there weren't certain things that they helped with and whatever. But for what I was giving up, it wasn't an even value exchange to me. And it's also like they try to play this role sometimes, labels, where it's like, well, we're putting the money up for whatever. But it's like we talked about earlier, well, we know your game. This is your game. Don't cry about your game. You make a lot of bets. That's what you're doing. And if you were an investor, you'd be paying the CEO of, and I was the CEO of a company that you were investing in, you'd be paying me enough to live, right? If I can only make music that comes out through you for this period of time, then like I should be able to have a salary and live. If your bet is big that I'm gonna like, whatever, then you should be doing that. So it's kind of like both sides of the coin. You can't, they try to play the fence, I think, labels generally speaking, in the sense of like, well, we're putting up all the money and look, like we haven't made anything back yet, whatever. And it's like, that's your game. You know what I mean? What are you talking about? Like, and the risk is actually way greater on the artist side, because if it doesn't work out, there's so many things that can happen and you're in a deal and, it's a nightmare. So, but I was just frankly, like, I mean, I'm doing it right now. Like I'm doing everything that I got, every look pretty much, besides the budget numbers, which weren't even that much bigger. Like I'm doing it now on my own, and I was doing a lot of it on my own then, frankly. Like I was working just as hard, so yeah.
Let me jump back. Sorry, Dan. Let me jump back to the producer conversation quickly, because that collaboration is necessary. So if you were to give producers advice based on having worked with so many on different levels, what advice would you give producers when working with somebody like you, a super dope artist that is either independent with a smaller budget or totally DIY?
I think it depends, right? Like if you really want to build with somebody, I think you need to know like what you want out of relationships and situations. If you're really trying to build with an artist, then I think it makes sense to be more flexible. And I think, communication is key, because you got to know that if you're bending a little bit to say like, all right, I really fuck with you and we fuck with each other, and there's certain expectations for this relationship, but I'm like not going to take as much money right now. And I understand that, you understand that. First of all, you want to feel like you actually believe that you can trust that artist's word and that if you're working with them, that they're doing what they can. And I think, and then I think you got to know, because any artist, even artists that fucks with you, they never know what's going to happen to them in the next 2 years. So I think you should always take a deal or an amount of money that you're comfortable with, if nothing else came from the relationship. You know what I'm saying? That it's like that you could say to yourself, like, I'm building through this. And then I think it's like, I just think, and I know it's a hard thing to find, but, like the management thing, it's like producers, I think, need managers early in the game as well, if they can. But that's why something like Beatstars is cool, because the advice that I usually give to like other rappers that I would go back and do earlier if I could is like, make the model make sense as early as possible. If you're churning out a $5 profit, like churn that out, but build the system that makes it make sense, because we're geared to think of this thing where like, I'm just going to go. And then I'm going to have a breakthrough moment where it's all going to overflow and I'm going to break out and I'm going to be big and I'm going to be popping. And that's not how you build something, you know? So it's like, build it even when it's small. And I would give that same advice, you know, to producers. And that's why something like Beatstars is cool, because if they have that income, then you can take more chances on an artist that you believe in on the side and, you know, that you're working with or whatever. That you believe in long term. So I don't, you know, I'm on the other side of the fence or the other side of the court all the time, on the other side of the table. So it's hard. I don't know that much on, you know, how they must feel about things, because it's a hard position to be in, and it's often a underappreciated position. Like producers probably get shat on the most, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's changing, but ultimately what isn't happening is a big, you know, macro level conversation between producers and rappers. It seems like there are these conflicts, and then you hear about something negative happening and that just kind of sours things for people. And I think at the end of the day too, and this is big for us, it's the educational aspect. It's just, if I walk into a situation as a producer and I don't understand the business, and there's a rapper who doesn't understand the business, the rapper might think, you know, there are all these misconceptions like producers don't get writers share because they don't write lyrics, or, you know, producers are thinking, well, I just want to get a big advance because I'm not owed anything on the back end, because that's what I read on a YouTube comment or something. And so they come together and you create this perfect storm of bad information, bad business, miscommunication, and then it just makes both parties upset and reluctant to work again with one another.
Yeah, and I think, you know, guys that are trailblazing a little bit right now, you know, you look at Alchemist, you look at Hit Boy, Madlib, like just in terms of how these albums have been framed, and, you know, they're up there from a brand perspective, bringing an audience to the table. And so I think, like, as a producer, it's like, if you can generate an audience that has value, one of the reasons I want to make sure I do the split with this producer I'm working with is because while he may not be recognized for having value in the mainstream consensus of music industry people, which I've learned is just like a cool kids party and is not even really grounded in data half the time. But like when I look, I'm like, yo, this guy has an audience, and he has an audience that doesn't know me yet, and I can tap into them, you know, and he deserves to be paid for that. You know what I'm saying? And so that's the hard part, I think, sometimes from the rapper side, right? And I think traditionally, if traditionally speaking with labels, it's like producers are replaceable, you know, unless you're one of the ones that you've proven to make hits for us, like we can replace you. The artist is the brand that we own and that we're building. I think in more recent times, in like the indie artist space, someone like me is sitting here being like, might be sitting here like, well, I built this name. These are my fans. You make this beat, but until I get it, it doesn't get heard. You know, that's an artist perspective. That's not thinking big picture. It's not whatever. But it also has truth to it, unless that producer brings an audience to the table. So I think, like, you know, Alchemist, Hit Boy, Madlib, these guys built that brand over decades of work, you know, with legends and probably eating a lot of shit in the beginning and for a long time. But I think now with platforms, whether it's Beatstars, whether it's just building the YouTube up, whether it's connecting to an artist and using social media, but like building your own brand as a producer, you know, is really important. Because if you think about it, if someone's doing a project with a producer, you know, like there's, you know how like Alchemist or Hit Boy or whoever, like they're their own artist on Spotify or DSPs or whatever. And there's no reason that you couldn't do that. It's just a leverage problem. Like there's no reason that any other producer that's coming up couldn't say, like, if we're doing a project together and I'm doing all the beats, I'm building my artist thing and you have to put me on there. But it's a leverage issue. That's really all it is. So I think solving that problem early on could make a lot of sense in trying to build from early.
Dope. Well, I just have one more question, and hopefully we can have a follow-up conversation on the MEC with your. And I don't know if your team would be open to this, but my question is, what does your team look like? Like, how big is your team? What are the roles currently?
Yeah, so I mean, it's like it takes a village with me, and I'm really hands-on, and I do a lot of like sharing of the management load as well myself. But right now, basically, I have Dante Ross co-manages me. I have my friend Daniel Beer, who I've known since kindergarten, and who has been working with me for years since I started doing this. Co-manages me as well. And then I have another guy, Dylan, who is kind of like, he's really on the management team, but he's also more geared with an eye towards like branding and creative vision and, whatever. And then I have an assistant. Actually, I brought on an assistant this year just to help me with stuff, because I do so much self-management stuff that it's like so much of it becomes actually clerical. And it's like, I'm trying to be an artist, like that's the other thing. I don't want to turn into like a machine. I make emotional music, and I want to have space to be an artist and not, be a factory of music, So I have an assistant, and and that's the squad right now. And I have a lawyer, I have a business manager, and like, to be clear too, these people all believe in me, like they're not getting, like my lawyer and my business manager, like they're not really getting paid that much yet, off of what we're making. Like we're not in that place yet where we're making a lot of money where everyone's getting whatever, but people believe in what I'm doing long term. Right. And I think that says two things that I would want artists to understand. It's like, number one, build for long term so that you can get people to believe in a long term, right? Like if they see that you're actually working towards that and have pillars in place to create that, build for that. And then number two, like, think about who you are, man. Like, I've made a lot of choices in things that I talk about in my music and the things that I prioritize in my business and all of these things. And I really try to move with integrity. And I've paid short-term prices for those things time and time again in the form of money, opportunities, whatever it is. But I believe in that. And so that doesn't have no value. And capitalism and music industry will try to make it seem like that doesn't have no value, but that does have value. Because when you look at me and you say, why do you have a whole team around you that will work for, maybe for years for essentially nothing, because they believe in you and what you're doing, is because these people feel good about being a part of what I'm doing. All right. And there's value in that. There's real value in that. So I that's what I would, and I don't say that to be like egotistical. It's more that I want younger artists to understand and believe that, like, because there's all these competing forces telling you have to talk about this or you have to act like this if you want to, whatever, because no one cares. And like, that's not true, actually. If you stand on something and apart from the crowd and you move with integrity, give something that people, at the end of the day, the more I get into music, especially with people that already have their salaries intact and that have their thing, it's all about feelings, man. People want, I was watching Seinfeld, Comedians in Cars, and Seinfeld, he's like, Hollywood only exists to justify all the meetings. Everyone leaves a meeting and like, we feel great. And like, everyone's like, it was a great meeting, whatever. But this shit is, bro, people want to feel good about what they're doing, especially people that are established that can help you. Like if you can't offer them that much money right now, and maybe even ever, but you can offer them to be a part of something that they're proud of. So think about that, think about what you're building if you're a young artist and what you stand on, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I didn't know Dante was part of your management team. I met Dante a while back, and I think I invited him on like a conference or something we were doing. And I think he wanted to be paid. And I was like, it's not that type of conference, but if he still needs to be paid to come on the MEC, then that's not what I'm offering. But I would just love, because I think
everybody has a Dante Ross story.
I met him fairly early. I know that Dante has like been around forever. I wasn't familiar with him, but I met him kind of earlier in like the earlier part of our success of Funk Volume when we were out in New York one time. I met him. But I would love to have you guys on the MEC, at least you and a couple of your team members, just to explore that dynamic, kind of what brought them in, how you guys operate. Because a lot of artists are trying to find their team. and they don't know how. And they may not be at a level where they can attract somebody because they haven't built for the long term, or they don't see the potential in their talent yet. So it's more about working on their talent, their story, things like that, before you can get people to believe in you like you've done. So I'll circle back with an email if there's an opportunity to do that. I'd like to do it. If not, all good. So just let me know. I'll hit you with an email though.
Yeah. Let me know. I'll talk to the guys. I'll talk to the guys. And I mean, yeah, man, I building the team is just so essential, and it's really, really hard, especially, it can be great to work with people that you're really close with. It can be difficult, it's been an ongoing process for me, just building, even with that team, that's been kind of interchanging some parts and things like that. And it's really difficult, and it's really important. But one thing I would just say is, to whatever extent possible, and I'm lucky because I grew up in a certain way and had certain opportunities. I got to go to college. I got to learn, about organizing shit and and have certain communication skills that not everybody has. But to whatever extent possible, I would say, in those early days for artists, is try to become your own team, because, it's always going to be on you at the end of the day. It's always going to be on you. And I think we are kind of conditioned to wait around to be discovered. There's that. We want to be discovered as artists. There's something romantic about it, so.
You can't try. You have to be. Ain't nobody going to be working with you in early that. You got to be your own team. There's no choice.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what's crazy is, I always tell young people, college isn't for everybody. But I encourage young people to go to college if they haven't figured out what they want to do yet, because I think it opens up the most doors at that age. And I can always tell, when I talk to an artist, if they've gone to college. Typically, I'm probably 98, 99%, even before they tell me. So I hear it in how you're thinking about things, that organization you're talking about, the communication skills you're talking about. Some of that stuff not even picked up in class. I mean, a lot of it is. It's just the people you're around and just that life experience. Again, not for everybody, but I encourage folks to go to college if they don't have something that they've already proven that they can make a living doing.
I went to college, and I know that we're running over time based on my university experience, so we gotta wrap it up. Unfortunately, this just means we're gonna have to do a follow-up. So I think we can, I don't know, maybe guilt trip Marlon into doing that based on the runtime of this episode. Once again, man, appreciate you. It's Marlon Craft on YouTube, at Marlon Craft on Instagram, and it sounds like you have a lot coming up, so people should definitely follow and stay on top of everything that's dropping.
Word. Thank you guys for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you. Once again, it's the MEC podcast powered by Beatstars. We're live twice a week on beatstars.live, musicentrepreneurclub.com. Dame, what's the number to text?
Text MEC to 844-206-7800. You'll get a text right before we go live. And Marlon, man, if you need anything from us, if there's any help I can provide, if you ever want to just talk strategy around the membership program, anything like that, bro, happy to do it.
I really appreciate it, man. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, let's stay in touch, and I'll talk to the guys about following up.
Cool. All right, y'all.